Righty, welcome everyone. Welcome to members of the public who have both interest in the stadium and the Theatre Museum project. So today this workshop is about updating elected members as to where the projects are. So just for your information, we have a small group of councillors on the stadium project and a small group of councillors on the Theatre Museum project. So not everyone is over the detail, and this is an opportunity to update everyone and ask for ask questions. This is, of course, not decision making at all. We have some decision making as far as moving these projects forward, which is in the council meeting in the following week. So next Tuesday, which is likely a 2 o'clock start, I think, scheduled at the moment. So what we'll do, because there's people, we're live streaming as well, so we'll just whip around the room and just introduce ourselves so those online know who's here. So obviously I'm Mayor Nigel.
Stu Pennington, councillor.
Good afternoon, Councillor Michelle Pye.
Good afternoon, Councillor Scott Shannon.
Councillor Gavin Oliver.
CEO Nigel Trainer.
Good afternoon, Paul Haggith from Team Projects, Project Director for both projects.
Paul Cooper, Environmental Services Group Manager and Project Sponsor for both these projects.
Stacey Scott, councillor.
Good afternoon, Peter Boot, councillor.
Kia ora, Owen Jackson, Timaru Ward councillor.
Kia ora, good afternoon, Councillor Sally Parker.
Councillor Alan Booth.
Perfect, so I'll pass now to the Pauls and Nigel to lead us through.
Thanks very much, Mayor Nigel. I think you set the itinerary or what we're going to talk about up quite well for today, but there's two purposes, one of which is to give elected members an update as to where we're at on both these projects, and the second purpose being actually to have a little bit more detail in the public arena about the work that we've been doing to date before we come to the council meeting next week. So we'll present very shortly a presentation followed by a discussion on the stadium, and then following that we will do the same for the theatre and museum. I've got, as you know, we've got two Pauls here, both Yorkshiremen, and we certainly like to get things done, and that is what we're trying to achieve for these two projects. So Paul will take us through the presentations now, and I'll hand over to him because he's got a great handle on where we're at and what's happening and why.
Thank you very much, Paul. Excuse me. Thanks everybody for having me here today to update you on the two projects. So let's start with the stadium project. A reminder, first of all, of the resolutions that we are working to. So back in November 2024, we had a number of resolutions. The council resolved to pursue option one, which was a tender put forward by Thomson Engineering. The council resolved to delegate authority to the chief executive and under an approved budget of $24.2 million. The tender that was put forward was a proposal to build a new stadium and to demolish the existing, but the council did resolve to explore opportunities to both build a new stadium and to retain the existing, all within the approved budget of $24.2 million. So that's what we have been working hard to achieve. Okay. There's a further resolution that we kept the user groups involved in any further discussions and development design, which we've done. The user groups met probably about 3 weeks ago and are very supportive of where we've got to with the current design. Okay, so let's start. This was the proposal put forward as a result of the initial tender, and this was two options for an 8-court and a 10-court stadium. This shows the 10-court as a separate building with integral changing facilities, reception, gymnasium as support facilities, with the intention to demolish the existing stadium. Following the council resolution, we looked at the optimum way to retain the existing stadium, and we'll look at each of the buildings in a little more detail as we go through. But you can see from here that we have moved the new stadium south and linked it to the existing with a building that we very originally call the Link Building. So the yellow building there is the new facility, which is an 8-court facility, and further to the bottom of the screen there, the orange or the buff is the existing facility, which is the existing 3-court facility. Some images courtesy of Thompson's, who've been working really hard to get us where we currently are. So that's an aerial to show the existing stadium and across to the new stadium across the existing, and up to the top right of the picture, the blue is the new hockey turf, which was just installed and opened just a few months ago. Cut through, so this is not a value engineering option with no roof. This is just purely to show the layouts inside. So we've got the 3 courts in the existing towards the top of the screen, linked by the link building. We'll look at that and how it's laid out and how we've optimized the space in there. And we've got 8 courts laid out as we see there. Okay, another aerial. Towards the center of the screen there, you'll see the first image of the link building. So there's been a lot of work gone into this to make it work. Now, I should just go back one. The original tender that was put forward made some assumptions in terms of the ground conditions beneath the new stadium to de-risk it and ensure that we were going into it eyes wide open. We undertook a fair bit more geotechnical investigation. And that did show that the ground conditions weren't quite as good as we anticipated or hoped. So that led to a bit of a redesign, a bit of a rethink in how we construct the foundations for the new stadium. And it will involve a fair bit of earthworks, digging out, replacing with gravel raft foundations, beefing up the foundations to the new stadium, and some piling work around it. And as you imagine, that all costs a bit of money. So we had that to contend with as well. The link building here, you see this is the new entrance, so anybody familiar with the existing stadium will be familiar with the beautiful 1970s entrance portico that we will do away with and replace it with a double height glazed atrium. And you can see there how we're dealing with the level difference which actually occurs as a result of the additional earthworks required under the new stadium. We looked at returning the new stadium to the same level, and it was basically $500,000 worth of gravel for no benefit whatsoever. So the new stadium is effectively 1.2 meters below the floor level of the existing, but we show how we deal to that. So that's easily dealt with outside through just ramps and shallow gradients. That's the first view inside the stadium. That's the new 8-court. Another view there, so you can see that we have, and that's towards the southeast corner, you can see that we've got glazing, and the glazing leads out into the link building, so we maximise natural light coming in, and we've got natural light in that southeast corner as well. And Thompsons have been very careful to make sure that we're not going to get sun glare coming through, adversely affecting the courts. And we've done a lot of research and a lot of liaison with other recent facilities as well to learn from their good and their bad. And one thing that we have learnt from them is to be really cautious about having too much glass that allows glare into the courts and ends up just putting blinds in that kind of negates the effect of putting the glazing there. This is the layout, and we'll look at the link building in a larger slide in a second. So on the left, it's pretty well as is. So we've got 3 courts in the existing stadium and the changing facilities below that. Not a great deal of change needed to the existing offices and changing facilities. They're reasonable condition. We'll give them a bit of a tickle, bit of a paint and decorate, but they don't need any major works. At the top of the existing facility is the hockey rooms. Now, the hockey rooms are a part of the building which is significantly below building code, but we've just ring-fenced that, and it's quite a simple solution. So that's going to happen over the course of the next few weeks to strengthen the hockey rooms to get that up to 67% NBS. At the north end, which is where the link building now sits, that's where the current gymnasium is located, and the function suite upstairs, which sadly is no longer a function suite because it's supported by props to try and negate the fact that it is an earthquake-prone part of the building. We looked at saving it, we looked at strengthening it, we looked at all the options, and the most economical thing to do is to actually demolish that northern end of the wing and rebuild it as a new link building, which is then linked into the new stadium. That also has the added advantage that it can be designed as 100% NBS There'll be a seismic joint between the existing building and the new, which means that we can use the new as a disaster recovery venue as it used to be used in the past. So the layout of the 8 courts, we spent a lot of time discussing with the various user groups and the NZ standards, international standards, to make sure that we've got sufficient runoff around the courts to make sure that we can stage whichever events we need to hold in the future. And you can see there that the middle 4 courts are grouped tightly, more tightly together than the outside, and that's because we've got 2 electric droppable curtains between courts 1 and 2 and 7 and 8, so we can divide the hall into 2, 4 and 2 courts and still maintain the required runoff areas around it. Top right, you'll see the blue rectangle, that's storage. We've got a heap of storage already, which is bottom left, blue rectangle again, 220 square metres there. It's not really that well used in the existing stadium. We'll supplement that with another 150 to 200 square metres serving the new stadium. Okay, the Link building. So this shows the layout of the Link building. It's 90 degrees oriented different, just to fit it on the screen. The entrance is on the right side, so that's where we'll come into the lobby, and the black heavy lined rectangle you see there is the reception desk. So behind there we've got a number of unisex changing facilities, individual changing facilities. We've got the back of house offices, the staff offices behind the reception desk. The blue rectangle there is the replacement gymnasium. And then we move to the green rectangle, which is 4 large shared flexible changing facilities. And they reach about 48 square metres, and having looked at lots of other facilities recently, they're getting up there in size. They're a good size for a changing facility, fully flexible, so they can be locked off and used individually or together or paired as we see fit. To the left is the multi-function room. So that replaces the function room upstairs, and it also acts as a multi-purpose room as well, which will serve as match officials' space for any events running in the new or old stadium, for any organisers running exhibitions in the old stadium, and for external events which might be held on the hockey turfs. And you'll see we've got a number of doors along the corridors which can be locked off and give access to external users without giving them free rein to the rest of the building. So we designed it to be really, really flexible. Now this is a second or third iteration. I think John Wilson from Thompson's was tearing his hair out with me at one point because I kept asking for more and more changes. But we've looked at all the options from 2-storey buildings to single-storey buildings to try and maximise the space, and elected that keeping the 2-storey facade is the right thing for the reception to deal with the scale of the building, and then we reduced down to a single storey through the rest of the Link building to maximise the space, optimise the space, and make sure we have enough flexibility for multi-use. So that's now a really efficient use of the space. The orange squares that you can see are the stairs, so that's how we deal with the level difference between the new and the old stadiums. This is the the netball court layouts. I can't quite see the dimensions there, but if anybody really wants to see them, we've dimensioned everything to make sure it's compliant. And the basketball courts similarly. Basketball's a little bit easier because they're slightly smaller courts. So if we get the netball right, then we get the basketball right by default. Okay, a few more images. So that's the existing. So as I say, we'll give that a bit of attention and a tickle up. And a few images to show how it will all tie together. We're still debating the car park outside as to whether to restrict vehicle access to that. And sorry, I should have actually said earlier on when we were looking at the site plans that there will be some improvements to the car park entries and accesses to traffic circulation. We appreciate that we're cutting off that existing road that runs between the 2 stadiums, and that's a good thing because mixing traffic and sports and kids is never a good idea. So we'll undertake improvements around the rest of the campus as well to make sure that traffic circulation works and footpaths are increased in width, and also working with the parks team to put a new footpath connection from Mountain View Road across. Okay, this is the inside of the existing stadium. The red is an indicator of the new steel or the reinforced, the strengthening steel that we'll be putting in there. The existing stadium is 50% NBS, and this will get it up to 70% plus 70 to 80% NBS. And we've worked hard, I'll say we, John and Thompson's have worked hard with the structural engineers to get a solution which is easily installable and non-obtrusive. Intrusive. Is that the word? Intrusive.
Ask a question on that. One of the areas of concern when we were looking at this stadium was we had got costings for, I think it was about 6 or 7 million to strengthen this, and so that's why it became a little bit, what was the point? And so can you just explain to us what the cost is for it now, because it is significantly less, which is fantastic, but you can see the frustration as a councillor when you get told something is going to cost $6 or $7 million just to strengthen alone, and now it's not that, and we're able to keep it.
Yep, sure, absolutely. So I've seen various estimates from 3 million to 5 million to 7 million to 1.8, and part of that was the strengthening of the northern end, which is where the gymnasium is. A big chunk of it was in there. We've negated that by knocking it down and replacing it with a link building which serves the two functions. So straight away we take out a huge chunk of the cost by just eliminating that earthquake-prone part of the building. As you can see from that image there, the glazing at the northern end, that will be a new tilt slab concrete wall which stabilises that whole northern end, and the vertical red members there are wind posts which help to stabilise it. And say thanks and kudos to John and his team for working out a really efficient solution. Even the horizontal steels that you see there, the reds, it's a more efficient system than it was previously put forward. I've also seen reports that said we need to spend $1 million replacing the roof. Well, we don't. We've had inspections up there, and we can get another 10, 12 years out of it by spending $75,000. I've seen reports that said the whole thing was going to cost $46 million. It's not, it's 24. So I understand and share your frustrations that some of the figures and information circulated previously was perhaps not as tight as it could have been. And that's, we've been working hard over the last few months to get real figures and real numbers. So to answer your question, it's the entire upgrade of the existing stadium, including upgrade of non-compliant elements such as lighting and heating, is about 1.8. Another view from the outside, our link building entrance. As we come into the reception, you can see there, again, we've got the level difference between the upper and lower. So there's nice wide stairs. I think it's 8 steps going down, and we've also got a wheelchair lift there to assist anybody getting from that upper to lower level. Down both sides of the link, we've got good wide corridors. The Yorkshireman in me trying to save money wanted to delete one of the corridors, and it's actually not the right thing to do. It's, having looked at it and played with it with the designers, it's the right thing to keep wide corridors both sides with good natural light and glazed access into both of the sports arenas. Another outdoor view looking in. That is the new gymnasium. That's not necessarily what the equipment will look like. That's just stock images, but that's the size. It is smaller than the existing gym, but it would be more efficient. There's lots of wasted space in the existing gymnasium. And you can see there the gymnasium being 1.2 metres above the hall has a slight elevation. So you can see there that going down that corridor, you've got a view into the stadium. And it was quite rightly pointed out to me that we need to have some shading to the bottom of those windows, because anybody walking past people on exercise bikes, we need to give them a little bit of privacy. That's the multi-function suite. So again, you're coming at level on the left-hand side and downstairs into the new stadium on the right side. And again, that little bit of elevation gives an elevated platform for officials who can set up and run their events and look out into the new stadium.
Elevation there, is that totally accessible?
I'm sorry,
That
say
room totally accessible?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah, it is, yes, yeah. Okay, and then we move outside again for some more aerial images to show how the facility is going to look. From the back, so you can see there the link building there, you can see there that we dropped that down to a single story to optimise the space and minimise the costs and put the money where it needs to be, which is into the courts, the 8-court facility. Okay, so financials, so how's it all stacking up? If we can read that, I should know these figures off by heart by now. There we are, I've got it here. So the approved budget is 24.2. There is another legacy sum of 567,000, which is available from the dissolution of the Aorangi Stadium Trust. That is going to be used for the upgrade of heating and lighting in the existing stadium. But with our 24.2 plus that 567, it gives us a total approved budget of 24,767. Through our design iterations and negotiation with John and his team, we've landed around 22.7 for the main contract works. There's 320 of direct works that we will do as TDC outside of that, and that's advanced works, service diversions, the upgrade of the hockey rooms, and the roof repairs. So kept that outside of the Thompson's contract. Then when you add the design fees and other internal costs, that leaves us $1 million contingency in the pot. So with those figures added up, that takes us to 24,767, which is magically $322 right side of the line. So while we might think that $1 million is not a huge contingency for a $24 million project, it is design and build. We've mitigated a big chunk of the risk by doing the additional geotech and by redesigning the foundations. So on a design and build solution, I'm very happy that $1 million sitting in the contingency pot is more than fine. Okay, in terms of our funding model, where it all sits, so the approved budget, as we said, 24.2, with the legacy funding takes us to 24.767. If we look at what the anticipated borrowing will be, well, the trust money comes off that because we don't need to borrow that. We have $2,070,000 of better off funding allocated to the project, and we have a target fundraising of 10%, which is $2.4 million. And if all of that's realised, then that takes the council's borrowing down to less than 20 million, so it's 19.37. Now, below that line, there's a heap of other stuff that we are pursuing, other grants and lotto funds and targeted sponsorship and lots of other good stuff that we will continue to pursue to get more money back in the communal pot, and that money will be used to reduce the borrowing level. But I'll stress now that we're not dependent on that for the project. All of that just makes our bottom line better. But we're sure that we've got 24.7 to spend and comfortable that we can deliver the project within that and comply with all of the requirements of the resolution. So I don't expect you to be able to read this, but this is the scope document that was produced and updated following the council resolution. And this simply serves to show that we have ticked every box that the users have asked for, so that everything that we said we're going to deliver, we are delivering within that budget. The green highlight you see there is just the elements I've pulled out as the direct costs for TDC that we will do outside the main contract. And this will be in the papers that you'll see next week, but very happy that we've managed to tick all of the boxes and deliver everything that we said we were going to deliver. There are a number of things that we took out under the heading value engineering. I hate the phrase value engineering because it's just shuffling deck chairs. But one thing we did take out was the retractable seats, simply because we want to work out what it is that we do need. We had a requirement for 1,000 seats in there, but nobody can quite work out, is that the right configuration? Is it the right number? So we can take a bit of time to work out what events we're going to hold, which seats we need in which facility, and there are a number of options that we can pursue, where we can get corporate sponsorship for those. We'll see, but as I said, we've got the $1 million of contingency. I've got a chunk of that earmarked for the retractable seats. And some of the other stuff we took out is purely aesthetics, which, as we get through the project and de-risk it further, we'll slip back in as we don't spend our contingency money. But that's just a way to balance the contingency against the scope. I always give the analogy that if you're buying a house, you don't board out the attic before you put the carpets in the living room. So let's get the priorities right. But very happy with where it's all sitting. In terms of our timeline, one thing worth noting is that we have changed the phasing for a number of reasons. So we're sitting now line number 2, which is contract agreed and fully executed. The intent is to have that sitting on the desk waiting for signature on the 7th of May, following next Tuesday's meeting. So all being well, we get the big thumbs up, get Thompson's fully signed up, and away we go. Should also mention that Thompson's are actually engaged under what we call a PCSA agreement, a pre-construction services agreement, and that's how we've been progressing the design to date. So we've been working with and paying Thompson's for their input to change the design. Hockey club rooms should be complete by the end of May, so we're working around their fixtures and their needs. That's not a huge piece of work. Detailed design will run through from now until the end of June, followed by building consents. And the civil and advanced works will be done alongside that between June and August, so that those works are complete before Thompson's land on site on the 1st of September with the big diggers. So we are attacking the existing stadium first. We had thought about building the new stadium, keep the existing open, and keep facilities at all times, but it was extending the programme out. And looking at earthworks in the time of year as well, we don't want to be digging major earthworks in the winter time. So we've liaised with Mike Wrigley at the stadium, and there's no immovable bookings between September and December. So the intent is to close the existing facility for 12 weeks between September and November, and to undertake all of the strengthening works that we need to do. It also gives us the opportunity to do some advanced works for fire sprinkler systems and pumps and things that we can then plug into later. Otherwise, we'd have been constructing it backwards. So between September and November, we will undertake all of those works, get the existing stadium open again by December, and then move into the new stadium earthworks early in the new year, which is exactly the time that we should be doing major earthworks. So between January and about March, 3 months, is the site prep and groundworks, followed by the construction of the new stadium and link building hand in hand, giving a completion date of the end of March 2027, just in time for the new netball season. So we're working around the fixtures to make sure that we only disrupt one netball season. Oops, sorry, wrong way. That's pretty well where we are. So the resolution, so the recommendation that we will be putting to council for next week's meeting, we will be recommending that the council accepts the negotiated design and price as submitted and presented here, and that council approves the formal engagement of Thompson Engineering Limited under the design and build contract, which will be sitting on my desk waiting, and that council also agrees to the proposed change to the sequencing, and that is existing stadium this year between September and December, and then the rest of it completing by April 2027. Any questions?
Paul, Paul. Just one of the things with the user groups was concerned around safety with the number of cars with the stadium. And so there is talk of putting bollards in for pedestrian only, isn't there, along that strip? So you would choose your car park if that made sense. Do you want to just explain that a wee bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So we went, I think if I flick back to the image. So we're very cognizant of keeping users and vehicles separate, and that's the whole campus. So the car park we see there is currently used for food trucks milling about, and it would make great sense to just not have cars in there. So that we are looking at putting I'll say removable, not retractable bollards are expensive, removable bollards so that it can be opened up and closed off. But we don't want it being used as a rat run for people, hooning about looking for a car park space. We want people to learn where they're heading to. If they're heading to the athletics track or the oval at the back, they'll use one entrance. And if they're heading to the main facility, they'll come through the main entrance, which will be improved at the front of the stadium. But you're quite right, we want to restrict traffic and circulation there.
What allowance has been allowed for civil defence facility during the time that this is going to be closed?
Yeah, Paul, thanks.
Thanks for that. Who was the question from, sir? G'day. We've what we're planning to do, we've got an MOU signed up with Fraser Park, and we're going to use that facility should it be required and suitable, depending on the shape of any event that might happen So we've entered into an agreement with them, and they've been very helpful in allowing us to do that while we take this construction project forward. So,
Further questions on the stadium? Otherwise, we can keep moving forward. Yep, cool. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, we'll keep going.
Right, everybody's favourite, onto theatre and museum. Paul, get away.
Oh, let's get the presentation first. Okay, so Theatre Royal and Museum project. Same thing, start with the resolutions. Just a reminder for myself more than anything else, what was resolved in October 2024. So in October 2024, there were a number of options put to Council, and Council resolved to move the amendment that the Chief Exec was delegated up to 24 million from a budget of 30 million for the theatre, and it was resolved that the Council delegates to the Chief Executive up to 24 million to progress Phase 1 while maintaining an overall budget of 30 million for option 1B, informed by community contribution up to date. So what was option 1B? This was the options put forward. There's a number of options, seven options put forward, and option 1B was the refurbishment of the theatre plus a new museum at these estimated capex figures, which is 29.2 for the theatre and 15 million for the museum, with 3 million for FFE for exhibition, construction and fit out, which gives a total of 47.2. So the resolution was to progress option 1B, stage 1, which was the theatre, up to the budget of 24 million as delegated to the Chief Executive. So working with that resolution, we've been working hard with our architects to develop the concepts that you have all seen previously and to firm up some of the numbers. So, okay, so this is an overview of the whole campus. I'll call it the campus because it's no longer it's not a single building. And a key feature of the development now is the laneway. And the laneway connects Barnard Street through to Stafford Street. It activates that whole northern facade of the theatre, and we'll look at how that works. And it also facilitates access to the museum. The museum being over on the right-hand side of the picture there. So that is a simple overview of the whole site. The light grey on the right is the existing theatre building. The buff, is that what we call it? Just to the left is the new back-of-house facilities, and that's back-of-house changing, green room, extension to the stage wing, the stage dock to make all of that work better. And the light blue is a reconfiguration and expansion of the hospitality lounges to address the congestion issues which currently occur. Over to the left in the darker grey is the new museum site. So that gives a bit of a pictorial of how it's going to work. These things are moving targets, so that the layout has evolved a little bit since then. But the red dotted lines there show the truck access in. This was a major issue, always has been for the theatre. The previous iteration had vehicles coming in from Barnard Street, and that was a long and difficult reversing manoeuvre from an elevated position, down a steep ramp. So the new layout has traffic coming in from Stafford Street. It has vehicles driving in forward. I don't have a pointer to point onto the screen, but the vehicles come in, they drive off from Stafford Street and up to the top position that you see at the top of the screen there, and reverse up to the dock. And the dock is just at that top left corner of the dark pink. So that gives the ability to offload and unload trucks through a brand new service dock, which is at the same level as the trucks, which they don't currently have. And then the vehicle can drive out forwards. So it's a lot safer as a manoeuvre. Appreciating it will be a shared space, so that will need to be very carefully stewarded when traffic movements are happening. But the reality is that deliveries and pickups will normally happen early hours and later hours. So that's how the trucks work. So that's what we call the laneway lower. The light pink is the existing stadium, the dark pink is the extension, again the blue is the museum. So the whole laneway is designed to activate the whole area, and you can see there that the blue arrows show that how pedestrians and users are going to interface with the various facilities around the place. Currently, we've got access only from Stafford Street into the front doors of the museum, but by introducing the laneway, it opens up that whole space. It means that users can congregate and mill about and spill into the laneway. We fully anticipate that it will generate more hospitality outlets, as you can see up at the top of the picture there, and it just opens up that entire space and makes it a lot more user-friendly and usable. It provides a pedestrian access as well through from Barnard Street down to Stafford Street, even if you're not using the facilities. So some more images here. Top image there is the front elevation of the theatre that you will all be familiar with, showing the entrance to the laneway and then the Criterion building, which we are retaining the facade of, and another view beneath that of the laneway itself. So the intent is that we're going to transform that into that. So that's what we've currently got on the left-hand side, and that's what it will look like once we've developed the entire campus. Okay, so this is a ground floor layout of the theatre as has been developed. As we come in from the right-hand side, not a heap of change to the lobby. There was consideration of changing levels and raising levels. That's not going to happen now. There's not a heap wrong with that lobby as we come into it. Then you come into the auditorium, and for anybody that's seen pictures recently, the auditorium has been pretty well gutted as it needed to be. Being an old building, it's sitting directly onto clay, so there's a new foundation slab needed, new ground slab needed through the entire auditorium. So the existing floor will be taken out in its entirety, a new slab put down, and then a new auditorium floor built. And that also provides void space for services, we'll call it a plenum, for other services to run. Takes us to the stage, which is the brown horizontal lines, and above the stage there you see an extension to the stage wing extension. It's a pretty tight stage at the moment for performers, so that will give a lot more space and make it a lot more usable. And directly to the left of that is the light grey. That's our new stage dock. So any vehicles arriving, onloading, offloading will reverse up to that dock, offload itself into that light grey space, and then stage wear and scenery can be decanted into the stage wings and set up for the productions. To the left, then we've got our back of house, and I'll show you an image in a second that shows how we're using the topography of the site to best effect. So there's some small changing spaces, dressing rooms in that green-blue area, and toilets. Behind that, the large grey rectangle is a shared plant room. So that plant room will provide services for both the museum and the theatre site. So we're getting optimum use of space by dualing the use of that. And up to the top of the picture then is the pink. So that's a reconfiguration of the hospitality areas. So the current building goes to probably about where the back of those blue toilets are. So if anybody that's used the facility in the past, you come into the lobby, it's quite a snug lobby, and you haven't got a great deal of circulation, and the congestion was quite bad with toilets. So this gives us the opportunity to open out the lounge areas, the hospitality areas, reconfigure the toilets to ease the queuing and congestion, and it opens up additional entries and accesses into the laneway so that there's more than one way in and out of the building, so not everybody's coming straight through the front door and standing making a nuisance of themselves inside the lobby. As we go upstairs, we've got the circle, so the circle will be refurbed as it is, and all the historic features obviously will be fully refurbed to make it sparkling and bright like it used to be. We've got a small extension to the hospitality lounge, as you'll see to the top of the picture there, the light pink area, and again a reconfiguration of toilet areas to reduce the congestion. As we come to the left-hand side, we'll go across the stage because that's double height void. So the blue and green areas, the big square to the left of the screen, that is our principal changing areas, toilets and showers. And then the blue square to the top left is the green room / function room / event space. So again, we're trying to make all the spaces multifunction so they are lettable, usable spaces, not only for productions but for private hire, and to also service the museum, which is off to the left. Section through there shows the topography of the site. So as you come through the site from the right, so the right's the entry into the museum, you can see how the levels change. You come through the auditorium, you've got the stage, and then the stage, it steps up 2 levels. The back of house steps up 2 levels, and the upper level is designed to be at level with the museum, so that the green room feeding out can also be used and fed straight into the museum site. There's the image there, so that's the first images of the museum building, and the green room is the brown square that you see just to the left there. So that also gives a good picture, good indicator of how the public space is going to work and all the changes of levels. Really interesting, funky space to use. Got some more images of it there. That lower image, again, just shows how the back of house interfaces through to the museum. The light grey big block is our stageway extensions, and feeding down to the hospitality extensions further to the left. Okay, so again, a bit of an overview. And if you look at the stage house and the auditorium, which is the big chunky bit sticking up in the centre, that's where we need to do most of our structural strengthening and seismic upgrades. So this is from the previous iteration. We are working to rationalise and simplify it, but we still need some fairly chunky steel in there. And that's for seismic upgrade, and it's also to accommodate the fly rig. I'll show you what a fly rig is in a second. So there's some fairly major structural steel work that needs to be put into that space there. Another image of it. So when we talk about fly rig, this is the Isaac Theatre Royal in Christchurch, and just to give an idea what goes into these spaces, so that's what will be inside the stage tower. That's what we call the fly rig. We'll talk about fly rigs, but I'm not sure how many people understand what it is. So that's all of the ropes and hoists that lift up the lighting rigs and the stage curtains and the stage scenery sets. So that's what we'll be putting into the stage tower, and one of the reasons that we need to strengthen it. Isaac Theatre Royal again, it's larger scale than ours, but a similar building. That cost 40 million to refurb after the earthquakes, but that had significant earthquake damage, so it wasn't just strengthening as a preventative, it was majorly broken. Beautiful building, and that's what we're aspiring to get back to. Okay, so phasing of the works. So phase 1 is make safe and demolition of the back of house. So make safe's been done. There was a lot of mould manifesting inside the building. That's now been removed and treated. We've got fans in there, so it's a lovely safe space. We don't need to be wearing PPE to go in there anymore. The demolition of the back of house, that's the 3-storey brick. I'll call it the lean-to. That's probably a bit unfair to it, but it's the lean-to at the back of the building, which is no longer fit for purpose, and that's got to come down to make way for the new back of house. Up in the top right, the Criterion building, we will demolish in order to make way for the laneway, but we will retain the facade and a rectangle of building behind it with bracing to hold the facade up that can then be unsold to any future development opportunity. And the existing Chinese Gardens restaurant, there's separate discussions ongoing as to the future of that. But we see all of that being future development site and being activated by the laneway. Stage 2A, the laneway, I've divided into lower and upper, so 2A is the lower laneway. So that's the minimum that we would need to do to service the theatre, because that has got the truck access route in and also activates it as a pedestrian precinct. 2B would be the upper laneway, which is the pedestrian ramps that gets you from the lower level to the upper, and preparing the building platform for the museum site. And while I've split it into 2A and 2B, really recommend that we do it all together, because there's shared services coming from both directions. It would cost more to come back and do the upper as a separate piece of work later. So it would make perfect sense just to do the whole laneway as one piece. The theatre refurbishment, I've split into 3 major areas, and that's the refurb of the theatre itself, reinstatement of the floors and the seats and the beautiful features in there, and the stage structures, new services throughout, HVAC services and the regular lighting, not the production lighting. The structural upgrades, so we looked at that briefly earlier, most of that will be in the stage tower and around the periphery of the building. And then the specialist fit-out equipment. So the specialist equipment will be your fly rigs, your production lighting, AV, projection, all the stuff that makes it a modern theatre. 3B is our back of house, lower floor and upper floor. 3B is the stage dock and wing extensions, and 3D is the hospitality extension and configuration, with stage 4 then being the museum. I've got these staging because that helps me with my programming as well. So what's it all going to cost? So that's the elemental costs of each of the elements. So you can see the demolition is about 0.7 million. We will be going to local contractors and tendering that. So that's my worst case scenario. Hoping we get a bit beneath that. But we have got asbestos in the Criterion building, which is pushing that up a bit. And we've got to maintain the Criterion facade, which is not a cheap piece of work either. So the lower laneway is about 1.8, the upper laneway 2, because that's got the pedestrian or the fancy bits. The theatre itself, the theatre refurb is about 7.8, and these are the all-inclusive figures, including construction fees, construction design fees and consents, etc. So it's all inclusive. The structural upgrade will be about 2.7 million and the specialist equipment about 1.8. And all of these are down from the previous iterations. There are ways to simplify and to provide a set of facilities and equipment which are commensurate with the needs of the theatre and the operational plan. Back of house is significantly cheaper than the previous. It's small, it's about 450 square metres. The previous was 660, I believe, at about 3.7 million. And the stage dock, wings and extensions will be 2 million, with the hospitality extensions and reconfigurations about 2.9. And that's reconfiguring the existing toilets within the existing space as well as the extension. With the museum, we've got an allowance of 10.2 million plus 3 of F&E, and with the 2 million for the upper laneway, that accommodates the museum budget. And the museum is a pretty blank canvas at the moment, so we're not working within the confines and constraints of a grand old building. We've got a bit more free rein to design that to be a modern but complementary facility. Okay, may be a bit difficult to read those on that screen, but that's the engineer in me coming out. I work in lists and numbers. So we can see there in the same colour coding that for the entire project, against the budget of 47.2 million, my estimate currently sits at 38.6, which gives us 8.6 of contingency, 18% of contingency fund in the back pocket. If we split that into the theatre and museum costs, then the theatre is sitting about 23.4, which includes the 1.8 for the lower laneway against the approved 29.2, and that keeps me 20% contingency, the 5.8 below the line. Museum, as I said, a bit more of a blank canvas, but we've allowed 15.2 for the construction, the FF&E, and the laneway upper. Against a budget of 18, which gives me a comfortable 15% contingency, which at this stage of that design is fine. So I'm happy that we've got the numbers, we've got the design to a point that really works within the budgets and conforms to the requirements of the resolutions, which is really cool.
Some questions, sorry. So these figures are new in our steering group meeting?
It's a reconfiguration of the figures that you've seen, because they're now inclusive of fees and things, whereas they were separated out. So it's presented in a different way, but the numbers are pretty close to what we have.
So cost estimate, we're on that one. So you're saying here, just so I understand, that the theatre costs have come out at 23.4 million?
Yep.
Okay.
Including the lower level, the lower laneway, which is what's needed to facilitate the theatre.
Okay,
Whereas previously it was including the whole laneway.
okay, including the lower laneway, okay. And then the 15.2 for the museum includes the upper laneway?
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so since the last time I looked at these figures, that's $7 million saving.
Yep.
So my question is, the CEO has delegated authority to 24 million. So I look forward to the resolution. It doesn't need one, does it? He's got, he can get cracking. So
yeah,
game over.
Good, excellent. That's my interpretation, Councillor.
But there is no contingency in there.
The north extension,
Yeah.
so that's the last stage. So can that be done in isolation and when we get towards the end of the project, choose not to do that? Or does it require that to strengthen the rest of the building or?
No, it doesn't require it to strengthen the rest of the building. So the phasing is partly my phasing from my programming. When we get a contractor on board, they may elect to do something a bit different, but I don't think so. You've got to start from the bottom and work up. So we've got to do the structural strengthening, the internals of the theatre first. But what I would say is, as we proceed through the developed and detailed design and finesse the numbers more, that will tell us if we need to find more savings. And I honestly don't believe that we do. I think we're in a really good position. But if we do suddenly find there's a heap of asbestos we didn't know, or there's a hidden basement, or there's archaeological findings, then we do have the options before the end of detailed design to pare back elements of that north, whether it's take it down to a single story and not two-story, or pull the facade back in. I wouldn't want to lose it completely, because you don't want to end up with just a blank wall facing out onto the laneway, because then it just ends up a service lane. So you need something on that northern face to activate into the laneway. But it's options which are in my back pocket, but I don't believe that we need to go there yet.
Just wondered if that could be the contingency until we get that far through the project. And then to Councillor Scott's point, then the CE we don't need a resolution.
Yep.
Part of that northern extension is also the toilets. Toilets do need something done to them, so you've got to think about how you plan that in. So if you're just going to do the toilets, that would be a different plan to doing the other.
Yeah. So the 3.9 for the 3.9, sure, it's my figures for the cost. Can't see the numbers. Then there's potentially 1.8-ish of saving by pulling it back, but you still need to reconfigure the toilets in the internal space, even if you just kept the existing wall. So it's not a full deletion. So you could pare it back, but it's. I said it's stages and iterations, and it's just normal for a project like this that I've always got probably more contingencies than I'll tell you. But keep them on the desk for when we need them.
But just to be very clear, it's currently sitting at 23.4. Total budget offered is 29.2. I've delegation to 24. That 24 does not include any contingency. So effectively, once we start, you need a contingency, as you know. So that's the big question.
Yeah. We have got reasonably generous allowances, square metre allowances for the new build areas, because they're a lot easier to plan. What you don't know is what you don't know. DK squared, you don't know what you don't know. So with an old building like this, start peeling back the walls, you might find stuff. But when you've got a new build, you've got a blank piece of paper, so you're master of your own destiny then.
So I think what I'm trying to say in a clumsy way, there is still more value engineering to do.
I was just going to say a clever person, so they don't have to come back into this environment, would look at that now and go, where are our cost savings? Is it in the northern extension? Do we need 2 function rooms and 2 bars? I would suggest not. And then the back of house seems large, and it seems larger than anything else probably in the South Island. And so where can we find those savings so Mr. Traynor can get on with it?
Sure. So in terms of the back of house, we have been looking at and comparing with lots of other theatres and making sure that we get like for like, because not all theatres are the same size and the same productions. It's it's larger than some and smaller than others, which sounds a bit contrite, but we need to look at what we are serving and what we're servicing, and NB Architects and DLA are working hard to squeeze down the areas everywhere we can and squeeze the most space out of everywhere we can. So yeah, there's still savings to be made, and we're still working on pretty reasonably generous allowances for square metre rates. And by the time we design it down to be built from 4x2s and not steel structures, there are certainly savings to be made there. But just, it would be silly to put them all out there right now. But it's a constant thing. Value engineering is not just a one-off exercise; it's continuous.
Yeah,
and as we finesse the numbers going through,
because one of the, when I look at this northern extension and I think about the stadium project, we know that there was, I think, $3 million saving in that from going down to one story.
Yeah.
And so, you've really, I think, you've got to look at it in that sense as well. Like what you're talking about, what's going to service our community.
Yeah.
I would suggest if we want to stay within that window, then the community would probably say we don't need 2 function centres and 2 bars.
Sure, yeah. And when you see the papers which will be published tomorrow, those options are in there as the, I won't say the last resort options, but they are the prioritised options, and they're certainly there as options, but I'd reiterate, I don't think we need to go there yet, but they are certainly options and easy fix options if we find that we are getting there in 2 or 3 months' time. And we'll only get there if we find big unknowns that we haven't yet uncovered.
Yeah, look, I think we need a reasonable contingency. We can't sign off on budgets. Apologies to you, Paul, but 5 years ago we had architects come here and promise they'd meet budgets, and they doubled. So professionally sceptical from what's gone previously on in here. My other concern, though, is I thought we were reconfiguring a theatre. Suddenly there's $2.9 million, I guess, solving a congestion thing for a bar, because that's why we got told the northern end was put on. And it's just wasting $2.9 million, because there's no way we're going to get functions. We've got function centres at the tennis court, the rugby grounds, just round the corner from the theatre. So I think we've just gone a wee bit nuts, to be honest. Same with $3.8 million in laneways. We're not Melbourne. We've always had a front entrance to the Theatre Royal that people can use, and suddenly we think we're going to have a whole lot of hospitality and people sitting in the sun. I just think there's 6.7 million that could easily come off the budget, because the ratepayers are paying for this. And no one's given me a reason other than the architect likes the look of it and a bit of a design, which they're paid to do and good on them, but they're not paying the bill. So, and for our whole budget to come in at 20.9.2, which is exactly our budget, just seems ludicrous to me. We'll go miles over it, I guarantee it, because every time we've been in this room talking about a theatre, the initial number has gone up. So I just think we need to make some serious savings, get a theatre open within the $24 million and stop the fluff.
Okay. With respect, I wasn't your project manager last time, so I'm fully aware of the budgets, fully aware of what we need to do, and books are open at any time. And these are not numbers just plucked out of thin air. We've done a lot of work on it, and
I accept that, Paul, but costs are going up. Would you be confident enough to pay the difference?
Costs are going up, but the market at the moment is such that, and we'll talk about the procurement process in a moment, we've got a really good opportunity to snag a good price and a good builder in the next 8-12 months, and then the market will start to move again. So we need to make sure we don't lose the opportunity that we've suddenly got. And that's not the only factor, but it's certainly a factor, and we need to snag our builders pretty sharply. And to be getting on with the laneways and those elements before the prices do go up.
My other question is, have we saved some money? We've spent $7 million on this project to date. We had South Base ready to go. They've done the structural engineering on it. are we going out to get another set of structural plans, or are we using some of that intel that we paid for that we can use?
We're using as much of the intel as is appropriate to use, but there are savings to be made in the structure. There's savings to be made elsewhere, certainly savings to be made in the services. So the services design was feeding a larger building than the Heritage Hub, whereas now we are paying it back to the theatre, and there's opportunities for simpler and cheaper services, which is reflected in my numbers. There's opportunities for cheaper solutions, more economical solutions for the structure, which is reflected in my numbers. And one of those examples is a double purchase fly rig as opposed to a single purchase. It doubles your steel, so well, let's go for the cheap option. We don't need Rolls-Royce. Lexus would be great, but we don't need Rolls-Royce. But neither are we down at a mini metro just yet.
Yeah, just if I might just ask a
Go
couple
for it,
questions. What stage? What would you? We're at concept or preliminary? Where are we at with you? What do you base your numbers off? Have you based them off?
Well, so it's a good question, because we've got elements which are absolutely detailed design building consent level from the previous iteration, which can be reused, and we've got probably more access to some of those numbers than we should have had, just knowing the right people. So we've got elements which are completely designed. There's elements which are at preliminary. So where we're currently at is halfway between concept and preliminary.
Yep. Okay. So
with big
so
chunks of
really,
it, which
so
are
really, you
detailed.
need to be at preliminary design, don't you, to with decent drawings to get some idea of what numbers probably will be with engineering input around all those key pieces. You're confident that you've
It
got
depends
that?
how you do it. I work to the budget and backwards. I don't work from pretty pictures upwards, which is where a lot of projects fall over, that people fall in love with the pictures and then find they can't afford them. We've got a number to work back from. And the Yorkshireman in me, again, is very cognizant of the numbers. Square metre rates for new buildings, there's lots of good benchmarking, and you can work to it. You choose your materials, you choose your layouts, and the rest of it. We've got some pretty good indicators to help us work within those numbers. And the architects here will tell you that I've been pretty harsh already in beating these numbers down. We work into the budget. It's as simple as that.
Does that include the electrical upgrade, or is that elsewhere?
So the electrical upgrade is part of the MEP. As I said, that previously was servicing a much larger building because it was becoming the Heritage Hub. So it is now, there's electrical to feed the theatre itself for the everyday services. The specialist services will be procured separately through a specialist electrical supply. And I'm not going to a designer for these guys, because the specialist theatre designers tend to design Rolls-Royce. I'm going to the guys that install it, the guys that have done it on a dozen theatres around the country, the guys that know what works, the guys that you find in a lot of theatres that kilometres of cables get laid and never used, because productions will come and they'll lay their own cables or got their own gear. So it's easy to overspec and go with the vogue of the day and find you're putting stuff in that doesn't need to be used. So that's what we're working hard to avoid, is put in what we need to put in and recognise when production companies will bring their own gear.
And have you used like a specialist theatre fit-out company to advise you about what you've got to put in it?
I'm talking to lots of them. I have lots of people knocking on my door at the moment, so I'm squeezing as much information for nothing as I possibly can.
And so, like, I see there's an allowance for FF&E. I mean, I assume that includes new seating, everything you'd need to
Correct.
open up and operate a theatre 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nothing else required.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, okay, well, that's my questions.
So polite. Thank you, Councillor Booth. Councillor Jackson. Oh, sorry. Councillor Jackson, then we'll go Councillor Oliver. Yeah.
Thank you. Firstly, Paul, congratulations on you and your team on getting that in on budget. And unlike Councillor Piddington, I don't see the extra hospitality side of it or the laneway as being fluff at all. I think they're essential to a modern functioning theatre, and I think we can optimise and maximise a lot of income streams by having those there. But that's not my question. So the question is regarding the regarding the theatre there's been some debate about whether or not we build that theatre sooner or later. So just wanted to get a bit more clarity from you about...
The theatre or the museum?
The museum, sorry.
Yeah.
Building the museum later, sorry. I wanted to get some clarity around whether or not you think that's the best way forward to build it sooner rather than later.
So I'll flick to my next slide because that will start to address that, actually. Okay. So in terms of the programme, and so I'm not ignoring your question, it's a roundabout way to answer it. So in terms of the programme, our design is going to run, as we see there, from Q1 of 2025 through to October, December. We are progressing the preliminary design for the entire campus. I call it the campus because it needs to be. There's common services, there's common utilities, there's common spaces. Following that, we will go into the detailed design for the theatre, immediately followed by a detailed design for the museum. And in terms of a contractor, we are intending, as soon as we get the thumbs up and the go-ahead, that we will run an EOI, an expression of interest process, to gauge the interest and get a short list of contractors. And that will inform whether we are going to go for a single contractor or two contractors. Either way, it makes sense to build both elements at the same time. And you can see from the programme there, I've got the museum starting about 3 months after the theatre. And for me, it doesn't make a heap of sense to divide it down the centre and then come back later, because it will always cost more money. Costs go up, prices go up. You'll have disruption. You'll have a brand new theatre trying to operate with a construction site banging next door. So and there's efficiencies to be had, and I'm pretty confident that the responses that we will get from contractors will allow us to pick a contractor that can address both elements. As a part of that selection process, any contractor will need to show us how they're going to maximise the use of local trades, local tradies, local suppliers, local contractors. So I've got all the big contractors knocking on my door at the moment, so I'm fending them off. But what I am saying to them is, before you come back and see me, go and talk to the local guys in Timaru, because you've got to show how you're going to benefit the Timaru community. And that's a large part of it. But to answer the question, I do recommend that the two are built together, because it will cost more, be more disruptive, and it won't be as good a product as if we do the whole thing as one in one hit.
The museum build looks completely different to what the theatre is. So you all have two different contractors on site.
Not necessarily. So I mean, the museum, if you look at the structure, it's a steel and concrete structure, which most contractors do steel and concrete. Yeah. But any major main contractor will be using the same palette of subcontractors and painters and decorators and plasterers and sparkies and fit out. So whether it's a brand new modern tilt slab concrete building or a refurb of an old historic, when you then get down to the nuts and bolts and the pipes and the wires and the heating, it's the same trades. There will be specialists needed in the museum for the fit out, for the exhibition fit out, absolutely. But that's exactly the same as needing a specialist theatre set of contractors for putting the specialist gear into the theatre once we've done the pipes and the wires and the bones of it. So they might look completely different, but it's all construction, and it's not massively different. It may well be that we have a main contractor who engages a concrete and steel contractor to pull up the structure, and then they may well use the same local tradies for all the internals. So I don't see them as massively different.
Both out. I mean, you'd put it out as one whole project rather than getting the theatre doing your stage. So
I would put out the EOI with the option for both, and the responses we get to the EOI will inform us whether we've got the right contractors on the hook to have a single contractor to do the whole lot, or whether we think it would benefit us to split into two. And that's part of the reason for the EOI process, is to get the right contractors on the right elements. It might end up being one contractor, it might end up being two. Either way, I still recommend that they're built in parallel, in tandem, rather than finishing one, coming back and having all the disruption of a whole new building site on the back door.
Right, Councillor Oliver.
My question is, and it's probably more for you, Paul, obviously the stadium, they're looking to raise $2 million. It says here $3 million. Do you think there's $5 million out in the community to build towards these two projects?
I think now that we're starting to actually show the community what the extent of these projects is and how quite special they are, I think we could generate a bit of a buzz and have a coordinated fundraising function that's born out of once we get contracts signed and start moving. So I think the theatre community have got a part to play in accessing grants and money around the place, and I absolutely think they can deliver that sort of 10%. Yeah.
Yeah, I think 10% you're being optimistic, but I definitely think there's opportunity to raise funding. And Paul and I met with a funder the other day who would, sound very positive, didn't it? And so I think there's some opportunities to.
But let's be very clear. We're asking for 10% from for the stadium. The museum people have already committed that they're going to find $3 million for the fit out. That's way more than 10%. That's 20%. So. And yeah, that's their project, and they've actually, but the theatre is the other one. Is there a fundraising capability for the theatre?
Yeah, which we are exploring, and I think there's definitely opportunities. Councillor Piddington.
I guess one of the elephants in the room is someone's going to do up the Majestic Theatre right opposite, or they've had a discussion with the chief executive. I won't mention him, but everyone knows who it is. So, but could we have an explanation from the CE what he's offering for us across the road?
It's in its very infancy in terms of a concept. So the offer was potentially to refit the Majestic as our theatre instead of the Theatre Royal, and potentially that person may do it themselves and donate it to the community, obviously depending on the cost.
So just so I'm clear, that person would redo it, gift it to us for nothing versus spending 29 million, but we're only at the infancy stage, I get that. But where does that fit in? Because I'm sure some ratepayers will be keen to get a theatre for nothing.
I think the conversation's got to be had about the capability of turning the Majestic into a performing arts theatre versus what we're doing. So I think there's a bit of work needed there. And obviously the cost estimates are not done. So who knows what it would cost.
I think also, isn't there still some doubt around the heritage status of that building? Like, it's supposed to be one of the oldest cinemas in the country. So there are some issues around that, isn't there?
It's got no heritage listings. It's got a consent to be demolished.
Yeah.
I guess my point though, sorry Nigel, is are you exploring that with him? Or are we going to vote next week not knowing whether that's real or not, is my question.
I think the next stage is to go through the two buildings with that person.
There's different types of theatres as well. I mean, the Majestic is potentially suitable to be a black box type theatre, but not with, it doesn't have the stage housing or the ability for fly rigs for. So it's a different type of production. So it doesn't even necessarily need to be an either or. It could be a both. There's plenty of places like Christchurch have got 5 theatres, and they all do well. And they're all different types and different offerings. So it'd be great to explore it. I don't think it's necessarily going to give the same solution or the same option as the Theatre Royal. But I think it could supplement and complement it. Fantastic. It could be the start of an entertainment precinct.
So by the time we explore that as an option, I don't know how long that's going to take, but what sort of impact could that have on this project if we were to put this on hold to wait while we explored another option? And is there an appetite for that?
I think I spoke to Mr. Rooney last night, and it's not a secret. He bought that land to support the council. That's what he spoke to me about last night. So at the end of the day, that purchase was to support the council. He also said to me, we cannot compare it as apples to apples, because it's not, and he acknowledges that. And so the question I think you're asking, Councillor Jackson, is yes, do we want to halt this project to investigate what that looks like? And it would be a significant different project, because he would probably need to demo the other side of the building to create that back of house, and what kind of experience would that be? So I think at the end of the day, the generosity of Mr. Rooney is, we've got to acknowledge that and respect that. But at the end of the day, he bought that land to support the council, and we're not sure what that looks like right now. And so Mr. Traynor, I would suggest, is going to continue to investigate that on our behalf. And it will come out in the wash over the next 3 working days. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding, that was a joke.
Yeah, look, I don't think anyone should look at it as a negative. You've got someone that's invested in our communities in South Canterbury, that's wanting to support council in the community. So I just see that as a positive. Let's have a conversation around what that looks like. I don't think that's necessarily going to stop a current project. But hey, I think a lot of councils and communities would be kicking themselves to have people like Mr. Rooney in their community wanting to give back. So we're very, very, very lucky. So yeah, we will keep that conversation going. But my view is, the projects we've committed to community, we still have a timeline to keep them moving on. So there's that commitment through LTPs, etc. But let's not, let's be open-minded to what this could be. Yeah.
I would just like to add to that would require a resolution to overturn the resolution already made, assuming Mr. Traynor can deliver the upgrade of the theatre for 24 million. He can go and do that without any further decision from us.
My issue would be is that Rawlinston's back in March 21 gave us some pricing around the estimation of what it was going to cost based on some drawings, and that was around 29 million, and I'm talking about a dual facility. And that ended, and within a year that was out to 48 and then 57, and that's what I'm worried about. If we have to be very careful about what happens, where we start and where we end, and I'd like to be sure that that's the case before we delve and start doing it and end up adding $20 million to the job, because that's been our experience so far all the way through with this whole project. And it's no disrespect to you, Paul, you're doing what you do, and I just don't want to go down that line and expose our ratepayer to an absolute disaster. So that's my biggest problem. Thank you.
I love that emotive language. I know, wasn't it? It was great. Well done. Yeah.
So we've got 2 sound bites. We've got stop the fluff and stop a disaster. I mean, for God's sake, let's. Tuesday's Tuesday, and it's coming up. We've done enough work. We've been here. We know what the community wants. What we need between now and then to make sure that across the road in any way looks like or could look like it, that's the question we need to ask, and that's it. We move on. Thank you very much, Mr. Rooney. It's incredible that we got there. Hopefully there's something sympathetic that's going to be built there that's going to support what our contention is there with.
So is there any more questions for the Pauls before? Yeah, Councillor.
Yeah, I'd be interested to follow up Stacey's suggestion what a single level would look like on that north side to save some money, because it's not about that, Pete. I've got people saying to me, don't do it. We haven't got the money. You're letting 50 staff go. There's another soundbite. But we've got to be real and have different opinions around this table to get a better decision.
Here's one I did earlier. So what we've got here, the three options if we need to go there. Option on the left is to convert the upper level to an open terrace rather than an extension. And my first estimate is that's a potentially saving of 400,000-ish. The option on the right is not to have the upper and just to have it as a single story, and that would save probably $750,000, and about $750,000, I reckon. And these are quite rough figures just in anticipation of that question. And if we were not to extend at all and just refurb the stadium as it is, it's probably 1.8 million, but as I say, you end up with a big, ugly, blank wall facing out onto the laneway and no activation, which is the whole driver for doing it.
My last thing before it goes out to the public, can we withdraw the figures that show we'll get 750k if we sell the Royal Garden and the Criterion, and the same for the museum? Because whoever put those figures in is nuts.
Yeah, there were legacy figures from some previous papers, but I don't disagree.
Yeah, well, can we remove them? Because you're not going to get 750,000 for either of those sites.
Professional term in the real estate.
Councillor
Scott, go for it.
Not to go back to the stadium, but I've just received a couple of very stressful texts saying that the basketball have a large event on in September and no one has consulted with them. They are running their year 3 and 4 basketball during that time, so it'd be great if someone could get on the phone and have a chat with them, because instead of me sitting here getting a text saying they've not been consulted with.
I'll talk to Mike, but they have been consulted. Maybe it's just a different person. But yeah, well, fine.
We'll follow that up.
Manager.
Yeah.
So,
and if we need to delay by 2 or 3 weeks to start it, to accommodate that, that's fine. But I know that basketball were spoken to about that.
So we actually said end of September. I think it was the weekend after South Canterbury weekend, and there's the only major booking after that is the car show. Yeah.
Listening.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
We
Yeah.
said beginning of September to whatever, and so they're obviously watching the live stream.
When we looked at the diary, we went the week after South Canterbury weekend, which is more.
14th, isn't it?
I think it's the 21st, something like that.
So
Yeah.
we can work around that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can work around that.
alrighty, we can take that up offline. Any further questions from anyone? Okay, no, that's cool. So, thank you, everyone. So, I guess coming through, we've got some papers next week. Stadium, I guess the theatre's going to be more of a focus around the contingency conversation that we've had. And then also as an advertisement, because local government is exciting, we're also talking about Three Waters next week. So if you're online or you want to join us in person, you're more than welcome. It's going to be a full agenda, and there's hours of entertainment. So if there's nothing further, I'll close us off, and thanks for joining. And those papers for next week will be up online Thursday, and the meeting next week is from 2 o'clock. Brilliant. Thanks, everyone.